Hello, hello. It's Mark here.
Hello, it's Marty.
Welcome to another edition of Stay in Your Lane, a sobriety show. We are so glad you're here. If you haven't already done so, please like and subscribe to our channel.
Yeah, we'd love to hear from you. We also have an email that you can get in contact with us privately if you have something. And we know that addiction is a touchy topic. Our email address is sobrietyshow4you@gmail.com. And the four is the number four. So it's sobriety show for you. The U is a U at gmail.com.
And I'll put this email address in the show detail so that you have that so you can see it.
Yeah, because it
Um,
felt like the Da Vinci Code as I was reading that off. I was like,
right, exactly.
I don't know
So
if I would be able to get there.
Marty had a great idea for a show topic today, and I think it's going to resonate with a lot of people. When people hear the word addiction, I think they automatically think big time stuff like heroin, cocaine, marijuana, alcohol, and they forget about the addictions that are plaguing thousands and thousands and thousands of people across the world. And those are sex,
Social media.
social media, food, all types of technology and cell phones. So today we wanted to take an opportunity to bring light to all those addictions and make everyone who is struggling with any type of addiction, feel welcome to the show.
And I want to touch on that because I signed off from Facebook for a year and 9 months, right? Because I'm writing the book. And then when I got my new business off the ground, my marketing team said you need to go back on Facebook and market on Facebook and get your friends to like the pages. And I tell you what, I have to be honest that now that I'm on there for business, I'm spending much more time on there, looking other people's business. And I already feel the impact that the social media, uh, draw is had on me since I signed back on. It's
Right,
it's ramping back up to that. Let me check Facebook 4, 5, 6 times a day. I have to because it's my business.
right.
Uh, no, I could be doing that once a day to check, it's and advertise my business. So it's as simple as that. It gets you.
Right. Well, and I think you bring up a really good point. Social media has been designed to capture us and to, for lack of a better term, trap us. We are the product of social media. And that's what's making all the advertising dollars, so valuable to them. Um, there's an amazing documentary on Netflix called The Social Dilemma. And I would encourage anyone who wants to dive in a little deeper to social media and the addictive qualities of it to watch that. It's fascinating. But I empathize with what you just said, Marty. I'm building my whole coaching business online, and it can certainly be a rabbit hole, whether it's Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. Once you get on, all of a sudden you can be 1,000 miles from where you thought you were going to go after you start scrolling and looking at information.
We love to play on words, and so I was just gonna. Never mind. I'll keep it clean for now.
Let our viewers get to know us a little better first. That's so
Right.
funny. Well, and I think
We
you
have
bring up,
well, first of all, let me just explain this. Mark and I have a real dynamic sense of humor between us that you'll get to experience as the show evolves and moves forward, because it will take everything in my power to resist some of the openers. I'm sure it will for Mark too, not to feed off of that. So, I mean, you know, brace yourself.
oh, I love it. There was something else you said that struck me, and now I'm having a hard time remembering what that was, but it was really poignant in this conversation about other types of addictions. Hopefully it'll come back to me.
Yeah, I'm sure. Um, One of the big things, I mean, and you have to really, you are the one that needs to monitor your behaviors and know if it is an addiction for you, right? And you could sugarcoat it, no pun intended for our sugar addicts. But really look at the amount of time that you're giving up to social media or to sugar or to sex or to drugs or alcohol. Because what we found out from sober living is that the most precious, priceless thing that we have is time. And look at how much time that you're investing in something and what the payback is, right? And what's the payout? Is it something that's really rewarding you with feeling exhilarated afterward, accomplished, rewarded? Is it? You have to have that balance in life. You have to have that triangle. You can't let something, and I can't believe I just said that, but you can't give the power to something to to control your time.
Right, right. Time is our most valuable asset for sure. And that did help me remember what I was going to say. You know, as many of you know, if you've watched our introduction videos, I'm a life coach and I focus on post addiction transformation. And I was working on a little bit of content last week, and it dawned on me that in addiction, a lot of times we are our biggest enabler and we don't even realize that. And Marty, when I heard you talking about Facebook and how easy it is to get on there 5, 6, 10 times a day, you mentioned something that made me think of this content. You mentioned, let me check Facebook. I have to check on my business. In a sense, that is such a fine line of giving ourselves permission to step into the addictive behavior. And I think sometimes it happens almost subconsciously. And I know there were many times when I was drinking that I was my biggest enabler. I thought, you know what? I'm going to be a little more fun at this party. I'm going to be a little bit funnier. I'm going to deal with my social anxiety. I started creating problems for myself that the alcohol solved so that I could keep drinking. So,
Did you thought the alcohol was solving it?
correct.
Right.
Correct. Yes. But I think it's such a interesting perspective because I never realized how much of an enabler I was to myself in the depth of my addiction.
Yeah, you bring up a great, topic there because I was speaking with a friend of mine, and I'm friends with both them. It's a dear friend and his girlfriend of 20 some years. And when I'm speaking to her, she says, that all these like because and I don't want to put someone's name out there without letting them know first, but when her boyfriend does this behavior, when he drinks, then she drinks because he's drinking around her, and or when he it doesn't invite her to do something, it hurts her feelings, so she drinks, right? And there's nothing that somebody else does that is what is making you choose to resort to your substance or your addictive substance, or um, you are the person that's in control of that, and never lose sight of that, because that's very important to me. When I was getting sober, is that, just like Mark said, you're the enabler. All these other things on the outside, you're kidding yourself by saying that has the power to drive you to drink. The only thing that's giving you the power to drink is you. And I don't know if that expounded too much on what you were saying, Mark.
No, I think it does. I think it's a really I think it's an interesting thing though to try to communicate because it comes off as being a little bit harsh, I think, and disrespectful to the addict. Marty's I know Marty's not meaning it in that way. I think the root of it is we all have to take 100% responsibility for our actions. It doesn't mean that that substance isn't powerful over you. That's what led you to the addiction. But blaming it on other people or other circumstances, that is not true. We have to take 100% responsibility for the fact that we did it. If it was addictive, we got addicted, and then we have to figure out the best way to deal with that addiction.
Yes. So thank you very much for translating that. That's exactly the message that I was trying to convey, and I think that's the great thing about our show, that we're co-hosting it, so
Yes,
we can quickly, help each other, to explain, because what we're trying to say in a non-confrontational way. Um,
correct.
yeah. So thank you very much for doing that. That's exactly the delivery I had hoped for.
Yeah, and I think it's a common, I think in addiction, it's tough because it's so easy. And I know I wanted to say, oh, it's because this happened to me as a child, and it's because this happened when I was at my first job. And, you know, all those things did happen and they cause little traumas in my life. But I have to deal with those traumas and I have to deal with my addiction. I was drinking to not deal with the traumas. So it's a very fine line that, or I guess it's almost like a web that we weave, but at the end of the day, we're 100% responsible for what actions we take.
In, this opens up another dialogue that we haven't even think we've discussed before, where, and you hear me say this often, is that a lot of the times when I've been mentoring my employees and friends, is that one of the things is that, communication. When I was in high school, in my generation, we had to have 3 semesters of swimming, and 0 semesters of communication were mandatory, right? So I
Right.
always say that I'm a better swimmer than I am communicator. And I always take that in mind when I'm dealing with another person. Is I always think like, well, I wonder how well they did in swimming class, right? um, and and you brought up something I had not thought of just until now, is how well do we communicate with ourselves? Like when that trauma occurred, I know from, once again, my age group, is that you don't talk about it, right? You brush it under the rug.
Hmm.
Don't deal with it. It will eventually go away. Well, it doesn't go away. It grows into something else, right?
Right.
So we have to remember that even it's not just communicating with others, but it's communicating with ourselves. Going back to what you said about and on the last show about taking the time, downtime, right? I think that's where you find the best communication with yourself, is when you slow down your world and you have time for yourself and you can communicate clearly, uninterrupted.
100%. I think we need quiet, still time in our lives because we don't have the time that we used to process emotions and circumstances. We used to run outside and play, and when you were running outside and playing, you had time to think about stuff. But I think any downtime now, you can see people holding their phones, you can see people on their computers, you can see people on their earbuds. We don't have that still time carved out for us. So we have to discipline ourselves to do that. I think something else, you brought up such a great point about communication and communicating with ourselves. This goes back to the self-enabling. I think it's really easy to communicate to ourselves that what we're doing is okay, but it's that little voice inside of us that's whispering, no, this isn't okay. And that's what we have to listen to. That's our authentic self, or our heart talk, our intuition. And unless we have quiet still time carved out, we can't fully listen to that.
Yeah, I mean, that's a great point. It really is. And I think that this segment has just opened up my thought process to so many different things, because when you when you were just speaking to the fact of that whispering voice, I for some reason it sparked a thought in my mind, because I had alcoholism that I was dealing with, and
Mhm.
drug abuse, right? So I compounded my addictions, and where I always said, I was the happiest drug user that I knew, right? Um, because it was like alcohol only took me to such a level, and the drugs took me to a different level. And that whispering voice when I was drinking said, "Get drugs," you know. And it took. And so when you were just saying that, it just struck me that I wasn't dealing with one addiction. I was dealing with, you know, a substance. I was compounding mine.
Right,
Um,
absolutely. Great
yeah,
point.
yeah. And so that whispering voice, it wasn't just necessarily, saying I shouldn't. It was whispering to me that, let's add something else in here. It
Well, and
did-
yeah, and I think that that's the addictive silent
yeah,
voice.
yeah,
Definitely.
yeah. The other one I had, I taped up and bound and gagged, and
Yes. Absolutely. Well, Marty, I think you bring up another good point that I think will probably resonate with a lot of people because I'm 100% guilty of this myself. In Even though my intuition in my heart was telling me that you're drinking too much and you're getting out of control, I was able to continue drinking as much, getting out of control because the other thing that I brought to the table was being an overachiever. So I still opened a business. I still kept all my commitments. I still kept my financial obligations. So, in a sense, when I heard you say you were dealing with two addictions, you were really dealing, I think, with three because you, from the from the ins, or yeah, from the outside looking in on your life, it looked like you had all your shit together.
Mhm.
So I think that that's another really interesting piece of addiction is for a long time we can hold the whole thing together and still until we start really feeling some of the negative consequences of it, whether that be legal consequences, health consequences, relationship troubles, family troubles. And then that's when the foundation starts to crumble.
So let me build on that because I mean, I love where this is going today because you just made me think of something else. Is that you you're right. I was holding it all together, right? But I wasn't holding together what was the most meaningful to me. I was holding together what looked great to others on the outside. I
Yes.
mean, I was holding the wrong things, and,
Yes.
and holding on to that was only fueling my addictions further. And it made it even more difficult to hold on to the wrong thing. I mean,
Yes. Yeah,
yeah,
because
so
it wasn't authentic.
it wasn't authentic.
It was an illusion.
Yes,
And I
that,
think that this is full circle back to your comment about us learning as kids to sweep everything underneath the rug. You know why we were sweeping it underneath the rug? For fear of what other people would think,
mhm, yeah, for
rather
sure,
than
right?
dealing with it and protecting our authenticity.
Right.
Yeah, it's so powerful.
It is. And I mean, I know for me right now, I think that this has just opened up another, 20 shows for us. I mean, I feel this one. I mean,
Yeah,
this is what I think is exactly what this show is about. Is
100%.
yeah, and I hope you as a viewer are like, wow, and send us a note. Send us something saying you guys hit the mark that, well, don't say hit mark because I might pick you up. But you really drove home a good point or several good points in that you might have gotten something else from this show that we haven't, that's there that we're missing. And that's what it's our show. Come on, send us what your thoughts are.
Yeah, and share with us what your addictions are. It doesn't have to be alcohol or drugs. If you're struggling with food, with sugar, with sex, we'd love to hear from you, and we'd love to hear your comments on the topics we talked about. To add one more addiction really quickly, because I have some family members that
I've
have.
got one to add too. You made me think of.
Oh, good. Um, I know people that have been addicted to people.
That's what I was going with.
Yes. And that can be really, really dangerous, and it can be just as destructive as a drug because it robs you of your authentic self when you're trying to be and behave and act the way someone else wants you to for that validation.
Man,
So
I got a good story on this one. It was my first junior high school girlfriend. I mean, and now we know the outcome. I'm gay, and I still wonder what was that, what was going through my thoughts, because there's still a special spot, you know, in my thoughts for this person, and I'm like it, but I was addicted to her for the reasons of, I can't even explain them all, I guess,
I
but
think it's
I
validation, isn't it?
I think part of it is validation and like, but you know what? I'm not even going to try to come up with an answer right here. I think that I'm going to save that. I have to mull this over. And I
I think
think
it's
that,
a great, great show topic
mhm,
for
I,
sure.
I really have to think about it.
And I
Um,
think this would be a great a people addiction would be a
mhm.
great show to have either someone that is currently dealing with that struggle or someone that has survived that struggle and is on the other side of it, because I think they could provide a ton of insight.
Right, right. Excellent. So if you're out there, please contact us, get in touch with one of us, both of us. This is going to be, that's going to be a great show.
Yeah, I think so too. This has been fantastic. I've
Yes,
absolutely loved every bit of this conversation.
me too.
And I
Thank you.
talk about goosebump moments. I had goosebumps a couple times, and I think that's when our authentic selves are coming out.
Yeah, and one last thing that I want to throw out there for the viewing audience and you, Mark, is that Corey came home from one of his television appearances the other night, and one of the producers, they make their own homemade Everclear moonshine, and so Corey brought home a quart of Everclear moonshine and put it in the fridge. Um, Mind you, we've been together for 3 years now, right? And he's seen my sober living, and I just want to, in the upcoming show, talk about seeing that there now and with the new me.
Oh, I would love to hear about that
Yeah.
for sure. Well, guys, thank you so much for joining us. It's been an absolute pleasure. I loved this conversation. Please like and subscribe to our video. And I, again, will post our email address on the comment section of this page. So please reach out as well.
Yeah, we look forward to y'all coming back for the next show. I just love it.
All right. Talk to you soon.